Oh, hello. How are we, people? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is with you. Hello, how are we? We got here we are, Sharon. Oh, Shazza. How's it going? Hi, Dylan. I hope you have a great stream. And peeps, don't forget to leave your touch DNA on the like button. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. I know we left that about an hour ago, but thank you so much in case you see this again at that point. Star, hope you're doing well there, Sharon, in deep, dark England. Mary Viviano, Italiano, Mary, quite contrary. Happy Thanksgiving to you again, Mary. Hope you had a good day yesterday. Um, whew, hey, look what they dragged in. Sarah P is in the house. I know Sarah P's off, so I don't think she's going to be here for much. But thank you, Sarah. I needed this. So welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe to the YouTube, and also press that notification bell on the way in and press all, I think it is, and hopefully you get notified. So, hello, Sarah P. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Evolve Recovery Emma. Now, Emma has a bad back. We won't go into why she's got a bad back because she denies it. I think I know how she got a bad back, but you know, she says it's not the way I think she got it. But I hope your back is okay, Emma, and it's gradually getting better. Nothing worse than bad back, I know. But yeah, sending T's and P's to you. Hopefully, feeling a bit better. And here she is, Nancy, Wisconsin. Nancy's from, I believe, yeah, with Nancy is from Wisconsin. How are you doing, Nancy? Hope you're well. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Oh, love Sarah P. Hey, come on, let's stop the mushy bit this morning. Jesus, she hasn't done nothing yet. Nancy, hey Nancy. This is again, I forgot about this. Jolly Alton Corner Community. Those on repeat, watching this as part of the repeat or whatever crew, don't forget you're part of the community. So if you fancy being part of the community, press this link or press the join button and either become a Tackle Club member or a Blue Wench member. Both give you the same, just different price range for people. Some people, obviously, money's tight for some people, so try and make it affordable for everybody. Um, so, yeah. Also follow me on Twitter. Happy Days Dylan, as in for the channel's Twitter as well. So, yeah, that I've greatly appreciated. So, hello, Nancy and Emma. Thank you for feeling better, much better. What have you been up to, Dylan? How dare you take a day off? I didn't even take, well, I mean, sort of day off. I posted in Discord my Thanksgiving dinner yesterday. So, oh my, I couldn't even finish my plate. I put a plate together, put loads of Thanksgiving dinner food on it, couldn't finish it. Couldn't finish it. It was just too much. I had a baguette today with turkey, stuffing, and cranberry. Lovely. And I've got dinner like tonight, as in what's spare. That's what I'm eating tonight. So I'm thinking I just want to do a quick stream today about Touch DNA, and that's why I thought come on because I missed you guys. I missed Emma. I know that's hard to believe, but I missed Emma. Also, special shout out as well to two of our lovely community members who can't be with us right at the minute. We have Danny out there in Ireland, in Dublin, who obviously her father suffers from dementia, so she's spending a lot of time with him at the minute, so can't be here. But she sends her love to you all in chat, and she misses us. So I hope that we all send love back to her because she's an integral part of this channel. Anyone that chats and anyone that's a member, anyone that just participates, we love you all. We thank you. So Danny, best wishes to you and your family. And yeah, she still watches the streams but can't contribute as much. So, but lots of love to you, Danny. And Hens as well. Hens is going through it at the minute. She messaged to say that she's got a lot on with family at the minute. So say to you, Hens, you look after those chickens. And when you got less drama in your life, get your ass back in here, girl. So same for you. Lots of love, sending lots of love to you as well. And whenever you watch this, we're all family, all happy. Yes, extremely happy. I mean, my mother helped out; she did the turkey and stuff. But yeah, everyone's happy. Everyone's happy. I had a wonderful Thanksgiving and birthday. Happy birthday! Was your birthday? I entered a new decade. Also, share a birthday with us. Now, you've done it now, so I gotta sing now, don't I? I didn't know it was your birthday. Pen-blwydd hapus i ti, pen-blwydd hapus i ti, pen-blwydd hapus i Nancy. Pen-blwydd hapus i ti. Yay! Happy birthday, Nancy. And to your son. I don't know what your son's name is, but happy birthday. Let's go. Happy days. There we are. That's your birthday song there. Sod off. Good morning, Frankie. Hello, how are you, Frankie? Hope you're well as well. Hope you're doing well. I saw you streaming last few days. I try pop in sometimes whenever I can and say hello, or sometimes just come in afterwards and give you a like. I hope you're doing well, Frankie. Hey, I think tank. Hey, happy belated birthday, Nancy. Nice one, Nancy. So I didn't realize. I didn't even realize. I didn't even realize. Pemble hapus, Nancy. No, gotta do it. Pen-blwydd hapus i ti, pen-blwydd hapus i ti, pen-blwydd hapus i Lee. Pen-blwydd hapus i ti, way! Lee and Nancy, let's go. Let's go, guys. Happy days. No, brilliant. So there we are. I've done my happy birthday singing today. Um, I was on TMZ. Whoa! Day before yesterday, should get the clip. Oh, happy days. Well done. I didn't realise. I didn't even know you're on TMZ. I didn't know. Oh, that's good. I know. I've heard of TMZ, but yeah, it's good. Well done, Frankie. Happy for you. That's good. When you get the clip out, make sure you post it so we can all do it and see it. Yeah, I didn't even know. So congratulations with that. It's always good to be recognised and everything like that, isn't it? So, right. Emma's clapping. Emma, have you got the clap? They called in the morning on a couple of hours. There we are. There we are. So hey, famous. You're getting famous now, Frankie. Don't forget about us when you're all famous. Right. I know you're not all here to see me. I know. I know you're not here to be see me. You got the crabs instead. Right. How's Karen coming on? I've not done it. Do you know what? I've done a little bit of Karen, right? I was watching Annie Elise, right? And Annie Elise is like, I went halfway through and it just bothered me how, I don't know. So I've not looked at it too much since then. So, um, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at other forms. I wasn't really happy with how Annie Elise was portraying it, to be quite honest with you. Hello, Dandy. Hope you're well, Dandy. Hope you had a good day yesterday. Haha, I expected spring, if anything. There we are. Hiya, Dandy. Hiya, Dandy. Right, let's give it one more minute and then we'll get started with this touch. Touch DNA. Mm-hmm. Touch. Touch DNA. Nunez in the house. Where did you sneak in, you sneaky bitch? Where did you come in? I didn't see you come in. Oh, there you are. I said Dandelionus. Have you been saying hello to... Oh my god, Anshi's there. None here. I didn't even see you come in. Normally you make more of a stern on here. I did not see you come in. Hi, Nunya. Hi, Emma. Yeah, Nunya is never this quiet. I didn't realise you were here, Nuns. Right, hope you had a great day as well yesterday, Nunya. Hope it was a good day for you. Right, hang on. I'm just trying to get... There she is. Now she's here. Dillon. Frankie Nunez. Right, here we go. It's the quiet ones you have to watch. It is, isn't it? Right. So I thought it was clever, right? I thought it was clever, do the PowerPoint and all this, but then it's a pain in the ass. So this is where StreamYard is really bad with presentations. This is where OBS is much better. So you put StreamYard. I've got to click in between stuff now because it's not set up for all this. Whereas if I did it on OBS, I could have a presentation and drag things in front of it and stuff. So you're going to have to bear with me with all this. It's a pain in the ass. But I wanted to do something about Touch DNA because obviously I made a video the other day saying, could you convict just on Touch DNA? Majority of people said no, but there was still, I would say, there was still probably 20% out there saying yes, they could. Which I always, I'm intrigued to hear people's, um, views and stuff. And hang on, we got a few more people coming in now. So, thank you. No worries. Tim's back. Tim, welcome back. So Tim gave a good. You contributed very well this week. So I'm glad you came back, Tim, from Denmark. Because you put Nunya in a place, which I like. Said she's famous after you song to her. She told her she loved. Yeah, I didn't think about the English version. I didn't think about the English version being embarrassing, so my bad. I personally think there's more than touched here. Yeah, I'm not going. Andy, I'll just say this, right? My question on that video, and the question always is touch DNA enough? That's it. That's it. I'm not touching everything else. I'm not touching anything else. There could be a lot more DNA. There could be more evidence. There could be a host of things. I'm not going into it. It was a generic question, but unfortunately, because it was Bryan Kohberger, everyone started going, well, it's not just that. There's this. I was like, that's not what I wanted. So that's why I'm basing this on just touch DNA, and I've got a couple more cases here, not just Kohberger, because we just don't know anything. We don't know anything yet. So that's why we're just based on touch DNA. Tim's back. Welcome back. Yes. Make sure if you put Nunya back in her place today, please. Hey Tim. Yes, she was embarrassed. Yeah, I know. Kids, in it. Touch DNA is good if you have more evidence, but stands. Yes. We have no, we don't. That's what I mean. Well, we do, but we don't know what the results are for everything yet. So we do realize we do know some bits, but not what the results are. So we can only speculate. That's why this is just based on touch DNA, because that's the only thing we do know is touch DNA. So right, this is not just about Kohberger. This is about a lot of other cases. So I think a lot of people don't actually know what touch DNA is. So I wanted to first of all touch upon some of the touch DNA and what they reference it for and stuff. So modern technologies can be detected and analyze DNA. Are you going to follow this? Yes, absolutely. Tim, interesting fact. This is the whole reason I started streaming. Really, was Kohberger, because he brought me into the world of Alex Murdoch and all that. So yes, I would definitely be following this case live. It's my number one case, if I'm being honest. Now detect analyze DNA from samples comprised of only 16 cells. Not quite sure, it's less than that now, but this just gives you an idea how little cells are needed. But due to the touch transfer properties of DNA, determining how those cells reach the surface on which they were found is impossible. Tiny amounts of touch transfer DNA have placed people at locations they had never visited and implicated people of crimes they do not commit. And I think that's the point I'm trying to get with this, is that, you bugger. tiny amounts of touch DNA. Oh, this is quite good. Oh no, that's not good, is it? I thought it'd been clever doing this way. Well, I better this one up, and oh, hang on, let me just try another one then. So yeah, oh you fucker. So tiny amounts of touch transferring DNA have placed people at locations they have never visited and implicated people for crimes they did not commit. I think that is um, the crucial part of touch DNA is that it can spread without even being there. Um, okay, really invested in this case. Oh, I'm me as well. I'm a bit behind at the minute, but I am invested in it. Trying to hop a train. Yes, absolutely. I don't speculate. Well, we do speculate because it's hard not to, but um, I'm just trying to look at certain aspects now. So that's a crucial bit for me. Tiny amounts of touch transfer DNA have placed people at locations they had never visited, implicated people for crimes they did not commit, which is scary to think. So literally, shake hands with somebody, and then you can go off and murder somebody, and your touch DNA could be all over that house, and you could be arrested and accused of murder. And all you've done is shake someone's hand, or touch someone's pen, or do you know what I mean? So there's so many things, or even just shared a glass, or even just poured some water from a jug into a glass, and the person before you is a murderer and goes off to murder. It's literally touch DNA is huge these days. You can catch it loads of ways. Touch DNA, also known as trace DNA, is a forensic method for analysing DNA left at the scene of a crime. It's called touch DNA because it only requires very small samples. For example, from the skin cells left on an object after it's been touched or casually handled. That's what I'm saying, like a jug of water. You know, your skin cells could be poured on an object, and someone else can pick that up after you, or from footprints. Touching analysis only requires 7 or 8 cells. That's more accurate than 16. 7 or 8 cells from the outermost layer of human skin. The technique has been criticised for high rates of false positives due to contamination. For example, fingerprint brushes used by crime scene investigators can transfer trace amounts of skin cells from one surface to another, leading to inaccurate results. 100%. Because of the risk of false positives, it is more often used by the defense to help exclude the suspect rather than the prosecution, because that's so unreliable. Um, it is it is possible to leave transfer touch DNA, but what are the odds of that happening? A lot higher than I think we think, Dandy. A lot higher. Because we're going to look at some cases here of people that have been in prison for, well, one of them 20 plus years and was innocent, but touch DNA put in there. True, that is why this cannot really, yeah, 100%. This is why it can't stand alone. I don't think it's reliable, and this is what they're saying. Defense use it a lot more to prove that somebody else was there than prosecution because they know it's not reliable. It's not reliable enough then to put there. That's my belief that if it all comes down to one thing and it's touch DNA, that's not reliable, in my opinion, not reliable enough to convict somebody because touch DNA can occur anywhere. And a couple of cases I got here, seen how they got convicted based on touch DNA is shocking. And there's a lot more stuff out there, from how people have been arrested based on touch DNA and they were never anywhere near the crime scene. But it can transfer super, super easy. So the first case. Hello, Melissa. Stranger. Stranger. Hello, Melissa. I haven't seen you for ages. Hope you're doing well. Hope everybody's well on your side. Yeah, I've seen you for ages. I remember a case where DNA was found on a garment of clothing from being sewn. Yep, there's lots of examples. Is itself, it's all the other evidence. No, Tim, forget it. Tim, we're not. I'm not talking about Kohberger specifically. We're not talking about all the other evidence. We're not talking. We're just talking about touch DNA. Everything else, and also because the reason I'm saying that is because we don't know what the other evidence is. We just don't know how reliable they are or what they are. So, in terms of Bryan Kohberger, which I know you're mentioning, I'm not looking at that because it has no relevance to me because at the minute anyway because it's not in evidence. We don't know what was shown. Don't be sorry, Tim. Don't be sorry. I understand what you're saying, but I'm trying to get away from people thinking this is Kohberger. This is not Kohberger. This is touch DNA in any case. I'm trying to get that just to get a better understanding of it. Um, if if his car is 100% found to be there, if Funko's places him 100% in the house, and then agree with you. Then it's game done. But we're not there yet. This is why I'm reining it in, if you know what I mean. Just looking at it in examples, I am at the minute. More Melissa, wow, no, that's terrifying. That's thrift shop. Let's just think about that. Yeah, it's not right. No, exactly, Melissa. It's not. It's not. And I get where Tim's coming from because with Kohberger, there's lots of possible other evidence out there, but we don't know because I don't believe like pings or anything. We just don't know. People say that his phone switched off. We don't know that. So there's a lot of question marks there. So I want to go on to a case that will help me, help Tim, help everyone. But nothing to do with Kohberger. So this is my first example. This is a case involving Mark Carver and Neil Cassand. I think I spelled that right, Casada. This is in Carolina. So when we talk about touch DNA, this was a high profile case, which is why we got into it in the first place. So the picture there is Mark Carver. Unfortunately, Neil Cassander, he died. They believe he died because of the pressures of this case that he was under, but they're both accused of murder. So I've got two videos here, yeah? Part one, part two. We'll watch this, right, to give us a foundation, okay, about the case. And talk about the crime, part one, and I'll talk about some of the outlines in part two. When I can chuck a video in, you put his face and name on it. Oh, yeah, no, I should. Yeah, I no, maybe I shouldn't put Kohberger on there. But what I'm trying to say is, let's just concentrate on touch DNA. Is what I'm trying to say because essentially, for Kohberger, there is nothing else that we're aware of that is 100%. So that's why I'm trying to get away from it a little bit. Oh, I regret doing this now already. Right, so the first one, let's stop screen here for a second. I got it all lined up. Is that one? No, it's not the one. This is why I wish I had OBS on. It'd be easier. Yeah, sorry. Look, I shouldn't have put Bryan Kohberger at the top because everyone will just go towards everything else. I'm just trying to do a touch DNA, but no, it's my bad, not yours, Tim. Thank you for saying it's not. It's nothing to do with you whatsoever. My bad. I should have not put Kohberger on there.
Drive
Right.
Carolina on Interstate 85 and you'll cross the Catawba River. Wide and placid, it's
No,
a
I
big
know,
draw
I know.
for recreational boaters and sportsmen.
I
In
know.
close but separate locations on the river's wooded banks, two people arrive here on the morning of May 5th, 2008. They could not be more different. One is a 20-year-old student from nearby UNC Charlotte, Ira Yarmolenko, a musician, a photographer, a poet.
We as women, as children.
An outdoorsy type who loves nature.
Ooh. She really enjoyed the beauty of nature. She tried to find it everywhere.
Pavel is Ira's brother.
Why do you think your sister drove to the river that day?
I think that she was looking for a pretty spot to take pictures at.
Ira is originally from the Ukraine, immigrating here with her family when she was just 7 years old. The other person on the river that day, 39-year-old Mark Carver. He's from just down the road in nearby Gastonia, a dirt road which bears his family name, lined with modest dwellings which house his relatives.
Carver was a very simple person. His family lived out in the country, didn't have much education, could not read very well, cannot write very well.
Unlike Ira, Mark has never been to college. In fact, he's never gone to high school. After years of working in the local cotton mills, he now spends his day here at this fishing hole on the Catawba, where he casts away his troubles, often with this man, his cousin, Neil Cassida. Robin Carver is Mark's sister-in-law.
Oh, they were together all the time when they were fishing and stuff.
What happened on that river that bright May day is as perplexing as it was violent. But this much we can tell you for sure. Today, Ira Yarmolenko is in a North Carolina cemetery, and Mark Carver is in this North Carolina prison, serving a life sentence for her murder. I recently went behind the barbed wire and concrete walls to hear his story.
Hi, Mark.
Hi.
I'm Elizabeth.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
You take.
Why don't you have a seat?
Okay.
How long have you been in this prison, Mark?
5 years.
There is no question that what happened to Ira that day was terrible and tragic. But attorney Chris Muma, who's devoted her career to exonerating the wrongfully convicted, says Carver is also a victim.
We think Mark is innocent. And if Mark is innocent, the family has not received justice, and the true perpetrator is still out on the streets.
Muma took me out on the river to the spot where Carver and Cassida were fishing that morning.
Mark would back his truck up to down this road?
Down here.
So he didn't walk the road, he drove down.
He drove down.
And literally parked with the back of the truck right here.
He would sit on the back, the tailgate, and fish.
Cassida left around 12:30 that afternoon, leaving Carver alone. Half an hour later, two jet skiers out for a ride on the Catawba come upon a gruesome scene.
Gaston County 911.
I'm a boater on the Catawba River, above the I-85 bridge.
Something blue and metallic catches the eye of one of the jet skiers.
There's a car that's run off an embankment, and there's a body laying there. I don't know if they're alive or not.
And as they motor up closer, they see the body of a young girl lying in the grass beside the car.
It is Ira Yarmolenko, her body, her car, found 100 yards upriver from Carver's fishing hole.
The police found Ira's body right beside the driver's side of the car.
Elizabeth Leland has written extensively about the case for the Charlotte Observer. She says the bizarre crime scene posed far more questions than answers.
She wasn't raped. She wasn't robbed. There were lots of things that just didn't make sense about this case.
Among them, the odd manner of death. These 3 ligatures around her neck.
There was the drawstring that had been taken out of her hoodie and wrapped around tight and knotted in several places. There was a bungee cord that had been tied around. And lastly, a very dainty little blue ribbon.
A disturbing discovery in the Catawba River, a body.
As the media descends, police begin canvassing the area for witnesses. They talk to those 2 jet skiers and to construction workers who were in the area where Ira's body was found.
We went to see if anything could be done, but it was too late. There was no movement.
And of course, they find that fisherman calmly casting for carp just downstream, Mark Carver.
And what did they tell you was happening?
They didn't tell me nothing. They just said they need to get my name and address and my fishing license. I give them to them. And then he gave them back. I shook his hand. They went up through there.
Carver is cooperative, but not very helpful. He says he neither saw nor heard anything. So police have nothing but bad news to deliver when they notify Ira's family.
Police officer came to the door.
What did he say?
He slowly walked in and told us that unfortunately they have found my sister's body and that they're very certain that it's her.
I can't fathom getting news like that.
I think all of us simply collapsed where we were, and that was it.
Days pass with no arrest. The mystery now as deep as the sorrow.
I hope that when you go home tonight, you will tell everybody that you love them. You will tell everyone that you know that you love them.
Pavel eulogizes his sister at a memorial service on campus. In the coming days, she is laid to rest, while detectives speak to those who last saw her, piecing together her final steps.
This video is to represent the timeline for Miss Irina Yarmolenko.
Detectives record this timeline video.
Ira spent the morning running errands. She went to the credit union, then she went to the Goodwill.
A security camera catches her donating several bags of clothing.
And then she went to Jackson's Java, which was a coffee shop where she worked.
It takes approximately 5 minutes and 50 seconds to drive to Jackson's Java from Goodwill.
And from there to the Catawba River is about a 19-minute drive.
This is the last documented moment of Ira's life, a grainy video of her car driving through the parking lot of a YMCA, about half a mile from the embankment where her car was found. Police study it, searching for any sign of another person with her. But the video is so unclear, police can't tell. So they pursue the theory that Ira must have met her killer out on the river.
If someone approached her that she didn't know, would she have had her defenses up?
Unfortunately for her, I think she was much more of an outgoing type of person.
The kind of person who would trust people she didn't know.
I think so, yeah.
With the search for the killer dragging on for weeks and then months, public pressure on the police to solve the crime mounts.
We were tormented by this search. We thought of it more or less constantly.
Hello, SEN. Welcome. So that was the first part. Okay, the second part goes a bit more in depth now, but let me just go and find that. So this was a case from years ago. This is remove that one, then get this one, present. So I'll play this one. This is about 10 minutes again as well, and then we'll get into it a little bit. Stop screen. So this is one of the first touch DNA things I'd ever seen, so that's why I thought it was intriguing.
Thank you. I'll need you to put on these gloves before going through the evidence.
On the ground floor of the Gaston County Courthouse, we find this cardboard box. Inside, the evidence from the Ira Yarmolenko crime scene, the 3 ligatures that were wrapped around her neck, a small floral bag from which one of those ligatures, a blue ribbon, had been torn.
Look at how tight that knot is.
Crime scene photos of her car on the banks of the river, all pieces of a Rubik's Cube of a case. Investigators spend 6 months working every possible lead and interviewing cooperative witnesses like Mark Carver repeatedly.
Did you see that little girl?
I told him I didn't know what happened to the girl, or I'd went up there and helped her.
Carver and his cousin Neil Cassida both volunteered DNA samples. Meanwhile, Ira's family works the media, keeping images of the smiling student, the carefree spirit that was Ira, alive in the public's mind.
We simply did the only thing we could do, contact local media and get information out there so that possible witnesses would submit information.
Pavel, a brother who won't quit, at one point appeals directly to the killer.
I have no doubt that once you truly realize how deeply you've hurt us all, you'll have no choice but to surrender.
It is not until 7 months after the murder that investigators finally catch a break. They have a DNA match. Traces of Mark Carver's DNA in one spot on the outside of the car, above the rear driver's side door. Neil Cassada's DNA is in 2 spots, on the inside of the right passenger window and on an armrest.
What kind of DNA are we talking about?
It's DNA where skin cells have been shed, and typically it's called touch DNA.
It is not blood DNA or semen, but police think it's enough, even though the 2 cousins had no obvious motive for murder.
The question that the DNA never answered and the police never could was why these men would kill Ira Yarmolenko.
Groping for answers, police come up with a theory that Ira had somehow seen Carver and Cassada doing something so outrageous they had to kill her to keep their secret.
Their theory was that Ira was down there to photograph and caught the men doing something that they didn't want anybody to know about. And so that the men violently strangled her and pushed the car down the embankment, and that.
No, ABC are fine. ABC is fine for copyrights. Otherwise, I would stop it, Tim. But thank you anyway. But yeah, they're fine. They actually they'll be quite good for smaller videos. So, but thank you. Well, because most of them aren't.
That's why their DNA was found on it.
So now Mark Carver finds himself on the hot seat.
Do you know what DNA is? I found your DNA inside her car. I can explain it. Now, you didn't find mine. Oh, yeah, I did. I did. I'm yours and Neil's brother.
My DNA ain't in that car.
How much money do you want?
I bet you $1 million. My DNA ain't in that car. I didn't know that car was even up there.
Hey, bye.
Well, I can't help it, but I didn't do it.
You said you didn't see a car, you never heard a car, you never touched a car.
I
Lo and
did.
behold, guess whose DNA is inside a dead girl's car? Yours.
Over and over again, you keep telling the police, we didn't touch the car.
I told them, but they didn't believe nothing we told them.
In fact, during that hour-long interrogation, Carver denies seeing Ira or touching her car more than 50 times.
I'm telling the truth.
When the interview finally wraps up, police allow Carver and his cousin Neil Cassada to go home. But Neil's daughter Amy says the writing was on the wall.
He walked in and he was like, they're trying to pin this on me.
Did he tell you what they said to him?
Well, they were saying that they knew he did it. He just needed to confess it.
2 days later, before sunrise, police show up to arrest the men. They haul them back in and give them one last chance to confess.
All right, Neil, we got a few procedural things to do real quick.
This is Neil Cassada.
Y'all barking the wrong tree. I swear my mom was ready, but I didn't have a thing to do with it.
No confession, no matter.
Police charge Mark Carver and Neil Cassada with her murder.
The 2 men are charged with first-degree murder, even though Neil Cassada had already passed a polygraph. The men appear stunned and confused at their arraignment the following day.
Like, everybody was just in shock. We just couldn't believe it was happening.
We do not want to go to trial until we have all the evidence.
The man leading the charge against Carver and Cassada is Gaston County District Attorney Locke Bell. But it is a slow charge. Even after the men make bail,
Neil Cassada's family greeted him inside the Gaston County Jail tonight.
No comment, please.
Police continue to test and eliminate 8 other suspects. 2 years pass before prosecutors bring the case to trial. Then, on the eve of the opening arguments in Neil Cassada's case, a shocking development.
It was Sunday morning. The trial started on Monday. He was in the kitchen, and he told my mom that I'm having a little trouble breathing, and he just fell over.
Neil Cassida never gets his day in court.
Neil Quesada died in his Mount Holly home Sunday morning.
Can you just imagine the pressure that he was under? No wonder, do you know what I mean?
Those 2 years was very hard on him. He was so worried that he was going to prison for something he didn't do.
Even with one of the defendants dead, the state pushes forward with the prosecution of the other, Mark Carver, who at the time hires local defense attorney Brent Ratchford. Before the trial, Carver is offered the deal of a lifetime, plead guilty to second-degree murder, and spend just 4 to 8 years in prison. Ratchford thought the deal was a strong statement about the state's weak case.
I'd never gotten such a low offer. He turned it down without batting an eye.
I'm not going to plead guilty for something I didn't do.
You'd rather spend the rest of your life in prison?
Yeah.
Mark Carver walked calmly into court.
In March 2011, Carver's legal reckoning finally arrives.
He's upbeat and feeling good. He's innocent, so we're ready for our day.
At trial, prosecutors build their case on 3 key pieces of evidence. The first, Carver's proximity to the crime scene. If he were less than 100 yards from where Ira was killed, prosecutors argue his claim that he heard nothing that day can't be true. Detectives testify about an experiment they conducted on the river. One detective stood where Carver was fishing, another where Ira was. According to testimony, they spoke in normal voices and could hear each other.
We had a lot of issue with that, but it was allowed to come in anyway.
The second piece of evidence is that touch DNA found on Ira's car that matched Mark Carver. Prosecutors say it proves he touched the car and therefore must have been at the crime scene. And to drive that point home, the state has an ace in the hole. A moment from that interrogation where Carver, police testify, gave himself away.
I believe the words he used was a little thing or a little.
Detective William Terry was also in the room during that interrogation.
He said that she came up to him about right here.
The gotcha moment was when the police detective was recounting the interrogation and said that Mark Carver knew that Ira was little.
That moment is crucial. Carver had always said he had never seen Ira, so prosecutors ask how could he know how tall she was unless he was lying.
The very first thing I thought of was, they got you.
Judge Timothy Kincaid presided over Carver's murder trial.
That's what did it for you?
That was the turning point of that trial for me.
And with that, the prosecution rested its case.
Everyone was then sort of on the edge of their chairs waiting for the defense to present a case.
But to the shock of Carver's family, Ratchford decides the state's case is so weak, he will present no witnesses or evidence for the defense.
They could not explain how the crime occurred. Based on that, the jury's not going to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt.
They told us no way that they were going to be convicted.
They're wrong. It takes the jury just a few hours to return with a verdict, guilty of first-degree murder.
When I heard that verdict come down, I couldn't breathe. I was like, oh my God, they got it wrong.
It's infuriating. It's infuriating because, damn it, stop screaming. So, that case, window, touchscreen, window. So essentially, what happened was they let the evidence of being able to shout 100 yards, 100 feet between each other, they let that in. That should never been in. There was just an experiment that you cannot, like, what? I don't get it. The touch DNA they found out afterwards. Yeah, no, exactly, Tim. Exactly. You can't reconstruct something like that. There were jet skis out there. They can't, but they did. And also, you need to watch the whole interview to see what he says about the girl. The police say to him, she's a little girl, like little woman, and something along the lines of, do you know how tall she is? And he just guessed, because he's on the spectrum, his IQ was very low. But, hey Katie, how they figure that his DNA got on the car, because it got on the car in like 3-4 different spots, was you wouldn't have picked up on it. But in the first part of it, Joe, he said that he spoke to the police when he was fishing, took his name and fishing license. He said, yeah, that shook his hand, and off he went. The detective that shook his hand then went to the car and touched the car. And that's how the police now believe that his DNA got on the car, his touch DNA, was through shaking hands with that detective. Which is mind-blowing. That's what I mean. You shake someone's hands, and his DNA transfers onto the car. Unbelievable. How did his touch DNA get there if he didn't touch the car? The detective, by the handshake. How did it? No, exactly. And even then, if it's a quiet day, yeah, he might be able to speak, but not like we got fishing and stuff like that going on. Yes, I see now. Yep. Yes. I'm not sure if you're behind Katie or not. Yes. Yes. Also, if you remember in part 1, it was the jet skis were out. So imagine the noise of jet skis. Were they when they were tested? No. I knew we have heard of that. Yeah. So, right, let's get into the next one now then. Share screen. Yes, absolutely true. Yes. Hello, Erin Hack. Happy Thanksgiving to you again. Hope you had a great day. Just driving between stores. Trying to avoid getting beat up on this glorious. Good luck to your husband. Wish him well for us as you're dragging him around. Hope you have a good day as well, Erin. But I wouldn't want to be your husband today. I can only imagine. Heard of that happening to folks who, yeah. Yes. Right, anyway, let's carry on with this case now then. Hello, Erin Hack from Lunia. The only good news is charges were dismissed. So Charlotte, the murder charge against Mark Carver in 2008 murder of UNC Charlotte student Ira Imalenko has been dropped. Oh my god. That's dangerous. Erin, that's dangerous. They FaceTimed me from the courthouse where they were having the ankle bracelet removed, so that was great. Oops, wrong one. Carver spent nearly 10 years in jail, and 3 years after that wearing an ankle monitor. We are appreciative of the professionalism shown by District Attorney Page since he took office last year. Justice has finally been served for Mark Carver and Neil Casada. If all the evidence had been accurately presented to the jury at the time of Mark's trial, Mark would never have been convicted and Mr. Casada would never have passed away on the eve of this trial. Both men are innocent, as Elwood proclaimed, she had in a press release. Carver and his cousin Neil Casada said they were fishing in the Cadavoa River in Gaston County. The day Yermolenko was killed, her body was found close to where the men said they were. Investigators at the time said DNA was on the car, a statement that was called into question years later. So Casada, as you remember, died before his trial. Literally died the night before his trial. Carver was released in 2019 after being granted a new trial based on ineffective counsel and new DNA evidence. So DNA actually cleared him as well. After that came the fight to get his charge dismissed. Man in prison, yeah. Just the wrong place at the right time is all I can say. Remember, his DNA evidence that he used to convict Carver was discredited when the federal standards for DNA testing were put into place. Mark's case shines a light on the issues associated with the interpretation of DNA mixtures before standards were changed and our state lab and Charlotte something, said Mum. No other suspects in Yarmolenko's murder have been identified. Consistent with our mission and a promise of the community, the Gaston County District Attorney's Office will continue to seek justice for the family and all homicide victims as the evidence and rule of law permit. Gaston County Attorney Travis Page wrote in his press article. So essentially, he got 10 years in prison, and then when it was like, oh, this might not stick up, he got 3 years on ankle bracelet, and his cousin, literally the night before his trial was starting, died. The stress was just too much. Which can you imagine? The thought of going to jail when you've not done it. I can only imagine. You know, it's sickening to think about. Anyway, this is all just to think about. I'm not saying that all touch DNA is not, but it's just like something to think about here. Hello, Jan. Hiya, Jan. Hope you're well, Jan. Nice to see you. Sorry, let me just get back to the. Whoa, 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 it's magic, you know. Right there. Right. Window. So justice was served in the end for him, but not for the victims and their families, essentially, because the real killer or killers are still out there. But yeah, his touched DNA of him and his cousin were found in different spots outside the car. And yeah, but it's ridiculous that he was spent 13 years of his life, and also his cousin obviously ended his life in the end. So second case. This is not video, this is me speaking. I said I'm going to try and do this in less than 2 hours. So second case, I'm not sure if you've all well, we know that after the Murdoch trial of them chucking phones about in an office. It's called, I'm not sure if you've heard about this one, Lucas Anderson. This is a very high profile one, and this, if you do not question anything to do with this, then I don't know, I can't help. In Kohberger's case, different because he was not a suspect when they found the DNA, but still somebody has got to touch the sheet. Again, each to their own on everything. I'm not debating it. I'm just saying there's various ways touch DNA can get on there. I'm not even saying Kohberger's innocent. I'm just saying everyone's innocent unless proven guilty. You know, so take care of them. No, that's the one I haven't been following, to be honest. Everyone seemed to be streaming it, so I didn't stream it. Was it after seen with it in gloved hands? No idea. It happens all the time. I was all outside the car. It wasn't even inside, I don't believe. Touched it in the store. Yeah. You could, yeah, exactly. Morning, Jonathan. Hope you're feeling well after Thanksgiving. They're desperate and stupid. Don't know if they are more desperate and stupid. Nunia, what? That's what she said. Jonathan. Right, Lucas Anderson. This is a sad tale, but let's get into it. No, I know. But I hope that you will see this one from this case, because this is similar. Not similar to Kohberger, but you'll see what I mean now if you've not heard of it. Feel fat. Happy day, Jonathan. I couldn't eat all my plate last night, and I've had a baguette today as well. I feel fat. Right. So we've got two things here, right? About Lucas. So this top one is a short version, and this is the long version. So I'll go in the short version first, for you to read it, for us to read it, and then we'll go into the longer process story afterwards. Then, so share screen. DNA and transference, the Lucas Anderson story. This is the whole story, but we'll go into this is 2019. So in late 2012, Ravish Kumara, a wealthy investor in San Jose, California, was murdered in his home during a home invasion robbery. Mr. Kumra was found blindfolded, tied, and gagged. He suffocated to death on tape used to silence him. The investigation led to a belief that a prostitute had provided local gang members with information about the layout of the victim's home as well as the valuables inside. As is protocol in murder cases, evidentiary samples were collected from the scene and from Mr. Kumra's body. A DNA analysis of the evidence collected from Mr. Kumra produced, among other things, a match for one Lucas Anderson. As a result of the DNA match, Mr. Anderson was arrested, charged with capital murder, and held in jail. Mr. Anderson, however, maintained his innocence. He claimed to have an alibi for the night in question. He insisted that he was not at the home of Mr. Kumra, but rather was in Santa Clara Valley Medical Center due to complications of extreme intoxication. At first, his claim was rejected as being contrary to the undeniable DNA evidence. Who would believe a drunk over DNA evidence? Well, fortunately for Mr. Anderson, the medical records showed he was in fact admitted to the hospital prior to the death of Mr. Kumra. Yet, even in spite of a solid alibi, prosecutors were reluctant to dismiss the charges. If Anderson was not involved in the robbery murder, how did his DNA get on Mr. Kumra's body? Until that could be explained, Mr. Anderson would be held in jail. The answer was eventually found. The paramedics who transported Mr. Anderson to the hospital were the same ones who The paramedics who transported Mr. Anderson to the hospital were the same ones that responded to Mr. Kumra's house. It is believed that the paramedics must have accidentally transferred Mr. Anderson's DNA onto Mr. Kumra. The purpose of the story is to illustrate that DNA evidence is not absolute. While it can provide some answers, there are limits to DNA evidence, and often the questions it cannot answer are the ones that should be asked. Now, if you do not question touch DNA after this, I can't help you. Literally, it wasn't even shaking hands or anything with her. Ultimately, I believe Dandy said something. He would only hug people, not shake their hands. I believe it was from a piece of clothing that the paramedics had brushed off onto the guy who was murdered. So you don't even have to shake hands with somebody. You can rub it on anything you want. Honestly, this is sickening. So they ignored his alibi. He had 100% foolproof evidence alibi that he was not there. And because people believe 100% in DNA, it didn't matter. Hi, Josie. Hello, Josie. Bang bang, Niners gang. I forgot to Sarah P. Bang bang, Niners gang. Good win last night. It's me, Josie81. Hello. Oh my god. So, what I'm trying to represent here is not saying whether someone is guilty, innocent, whatever about touch DNA. It's just trying to enforce that touch DNA is not as reliable in every case as what people think it is. Bosa. DNA can get you guilty if your uncle touches a doorknob, no that. It can get you guilty touching, like, I'm drinking from this. If someone else can come in, touch it, they've got my touch DNA. Do you know what I mean? They can go and open a car door, someone else can touch that same car door, they got my touch DNA. So this is what I'm trying to say. Touch DNA on its own, in my opinion, just touch DNA on its own is not reliable, in my opinion. I think it helps with other stuff, which we'll get into now with Kohberger after this. With other stuff, I think it helps. But on its own, in my opinion, touch DNA, you should not prosecute, or you should not send someone to prison based on just touch DNA. Well, relative DNA is similar enough they can use them to match you nowadays. Yes, touch DNA is absolute not reliable, 100%. Yep. And that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm not saying that people are wrong, but I think a lot of people convict based on touch DNA because of the word DNA. And it's not it's not properly DNA, and that's what I'm trying to get at. That on its own, personally, don't think it's enough. Now, do I think it's completely useless? No, I don't. I think it's obviously helpful. What I'm saying is, that on its own, I don't think it can convict. So this is going back to where I was with Tim earlier on. Tim, what were you saying about touch DNA plus the other evidence? I totally agree with you. Then. When you got other evidence to support it. And that's where I was coming from with that, with Kohberger. But touch DNA on its own, in this case, a guy has just been basically found guilty in one case. Guy killed himself because of that. And now this. So, I'm not saying Kohberger is innocent whatsoever, because that's the next case now. But, Katie, see you later, Katie. See you later, Katie. Never get a fair trial. No, he won't. He won't. He won't get a fair trial now. It's final. I'm never leaving the house again. No, and it's scary though. It's scary. It's scary. Oh, here we go. Easy. Trial by media. Yes, I agree. Yeah. By Katie. Detroit has a new daddy. Jesus, J-Love. J-Love. Hey, daddy. Hey, granddaddy. Dave. How are we doing, Dave? Hope you're well, sir. But yeah, Green Bay were very impressive last night. I must say, very, very impressive last night. That defense doing well. Enjoy the meal, Katie, but no stop them from using close enough to me with someone else. There we are. Dave, I'm a good Dave. Right, so my next slide. Let me get to it. See. Right, this one is here. Hang on. Yeah, there's actually something. They did alright, yes. Jonathan. Not sure if people get a fair trial. I think the evidence is overwhelming. I disagree, Tim. I disagree it's overwhelming. The only reason I disagree is because I don't think there is any evidence yet. But if everything they say is true, then yes, it's overwhelming. But until I see it, I don't think the pings and stuff like that. I don't agree with. But we'll see. We'll see. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, ladies and Jonathan. Sorry. Hi, Dave and Burger. I'm Tim. Tim's here as well. Dave. Right, let's get this. So, it's just some examples here for you. Here we go. Mum's can't be chocolate. Tier 1 and 2, we don't really know what they have. Yes, I think that's where I'm coming from. That's the important bit here. We don't generally actually know what they got. Right, so this is an experiment. So volunteers sat at a table sharing a big jug of juice. I don't know why we won't show that. Jug was touched by each of the participants at least once, and each of the DNA was found on the handle in almost every case. Although the volunteers never touched each other, 1/3 wound up with another DNA on their palm. A third of the glasses bore DNA of volunteers who did not touch nor drink from them. Glasses 33, that. So listen to that. Although the volunteers never touched each other, 1/3 wound up with another's DNA on their palm. A third of the glasses bore DNA of volunteers who did not touch nor drink from them. Then there was the foreign DNA profiles that didn't match any of the juice drinkers. It turned up on about half of the chairs, so half the chairs and glasses had DNA from people that wasn't even taking part in the experiment. Or they brought with them alien genes, perhaps from the lover they kissed that morning, the stranger with whom they had shared a bus grip, or the barrister who handed them their afternoon latte. Even your afternoon lattes, you just got touch DNA straight away on. In a sense, this is a surprising read. We leave a trail of ourselves everywhere we go. An average person may shed upwards of 50 million skin cells a day. Like 2 minutes, the average person sheds enough skin cells to cover a football field. So we're talking about 50 million skin cells a day. And with touch DNA, they only need to acquire about 4 or 5 skin cells to make the determination. Think about 50 million skin cells a day, and touch DNA, they only need to acquire about 4 or 5, skin cells, and then they're like, yeah, guilty. Fucking hell. Oh, the reason the case is under seal now, media is only speculating on whatever they think they have. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I agree with him. But unfortunately, I think that most of that's coming from the prosecution side, speculating. Never forget the police can lie. Yes, the media downright gets you wrong, but has no ability to fix the lies. Yep. Zachariah's trial. They said there was a victim's blood in the van. As trial, we learned there was no blood. I don't trust the media. No. Never understood that trial. Found it weird. It's infuriating. It's scary. Yes. So that's why I want to show that. I want to show that because I think that's important for us to remember that they're basing touch DNA on 4 or 5 skin cells, and we shed 50 million. So your skin cells can go anywhere. So don't, for a second think that that's 100% reliable or anything. Now again, I am not saying this guy here that it's not, he may well be the killer. He may well be. All I'm saying is that touched DNA on its own, he can explain that. He could have picked it from a store. He could have shook hands with the killer. We don't know. There's a lot of plausible answers to it. Now, there's also an answer of he killed them and it says his touch DNA on it. That's also one of the answers to it. He could well be. He could well be the killer. We just don't know. But we have to base it on all evidence. And touch DNA on its own, it's not evidence. It's not enough to convict. He is innocent right now, though. 100% he is. Innocent unless proven guilty. For now, yes. But obviously, everyone's interpreting it differently, is what we're trying to say here. Some people have been convicted because of extra evidence and stuff like that. But we're always in presumption that every defender is innocent unless proven guilty. But we just do not know how that touch DNA got on that button. Is the factor. And as I say, I'm not trying to explain how we got there. I'm trying to get across that, that there's other options and not just that. Right, let's have a look here now then. Let me get this one. Kohberger. Right. This is from August, but I think still a little bit relevant. Right, here we go. Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger appeared in court on Friday, and his defense team laid out new details about the possible DNA evidence found on the scene that is not connected to him. So if you remember, there was 3 different other DNA particles, 2 indoors and 1 outdoors, I believe it was, and that's off the top of my head, that they have not answered who they are. According to somebody in Washington, Kohberger's defense team, led by Kutinai, I'm butchering it, County Chief Public Defender Ann Taylor, asked the prosecutor to provide 3 other DNA profiles that were found on the scene that were not Kohberger's. We've given everything we've gotten from the lab. I don't know what to say. We've given everything that we know to exist. Latta County Prosecutor Bill Thompson said in response. Tana Bohm reported from inside the court they're asking for something that doesn't exist. We'll put in another inquiry to the lab for the communications, but as far as we know already, they've already been provided to the defense. Thompson getting a little fired up here. He says they're asking for something that doesn't exist. Well, false. We put in another inquiry to the lab. Yeah. Kohberger has been charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. He was arrested in December. Yeah. In May, Kohberger's attorney said the client was stand in silence, resulting in the judge to enter not guilty pleas for each of the charges against him shortly after his arrest in December. Kohberger's former attorney, Jason Labar, said that his client was eager to be exonerated. Prosecutors previously said the DNA sample taken via a buccal swab from Kohberger's cheek while in custody statistically matched the DNA profile found on a knife sheath at the scene of the crime. Thompson also previously filed a court document announcing the state of Idaho was planning to seek the death penalty against Kohberger. Thompson wrote in the death penalty filing that Kohberger acted reckless indifference to human life and exhibited utter disregard for human life. Despite evidence provided by prosecutors in the case, Kohberger's legal team have continued to maintain his innocence. In response to the DNA match obtained following his arrest, Kohberger's legal team said, "There is no connection between Mr. Kohberger and the victims. There is no explanation for the total lack of DNA evidence from the victims in Mr. Kohberger's apartment, office, home or vehicle. That's what I'm saying. We do not know what evidence there is when you consider there was no evidence in the apartment, office, home, or vehicle. And that's huge because the FBI was saying once we get the car and the house and everything, he'll be guilty because it doesn't matter how clean you think you cleaned the car, we'll always find something. But they found nothing. And considering what we've been told is the mess of that place, oh boy. That's why I'm like, he's 100% innocent. Deserves to be anyway. None of my exes started to see me as innocent. I was always guilty from the beginning. Well, this is women for you, Tim. When you're dealing with men, they usually. Ah, Jesus. It had to be exactly so, and that's why I reserve my judgment. When people say there's enough evidence out there, I'm like, where's the DNA, guys? I mean, Jesus, it would be everywhere. But anyway, I'm speculating there as well, so 100%. We don't know yet. Mr. Kohberger has long had a habit of going for drives alone. Often he would go for drives at night. He did so late on November 12th and into November 13th. Mr. Kohberger is not claiming to be at a specific location at a specific time. At this time, there are no specific witnesses to say precisely where Mr. Kohberger was at each moment of the hours between late night November 12th and early morning November 13th. He was out driving under the late night and early morning hours of November 12th, 13th, the file said. Why is that gone? That's the wrong one, that's why. So there we are. I'll stop playing on Reddit now. I don't like this guy, but do not believe he did it. Well, no, neither do I. Not yet. It was when blood came down the wall on the outside. Ah, yeah, you must beat him. You're right. That's why I'm surprised there's no blood. Here's DNA everywhere. Timo looked innocent is different kind of bird. This is exactly what my exes say. Did we date? The article syndrome all in house, you look innocent. Right. Stop screen. Let's get the other one up then. Which one's this one? Presents. Let me present this one. A trial expert believes DNA evidence alone may not be enough to convict University of Idaho quadruple murder suspect Bryan Kohberger and his defense team expected to attack it. Well, I hope so as well. I hope they wouldn't convict him on based on that. DNA on itself is not everything, said Court TV anchor Ted Rowlands, who's covered high-profile trials for more than 2 decades. People can leave the DNA on items they've never touched and in rooms they've never been in. Kohberger was identified as a suspect in relation to the slaughtering of University of Idaho students Katie Gonzalez, Madison Morgan, Saina Kanoda, and Ethan Chapin at their off-campus home on November 13, 2022. After his DNA was found on a knife sheath located, on the button of a knife sheath located by officers at the crime scene. I think from the defense, you're going to see a huge attack on the DNA because if you get rid of that, you have a chance, Roland said via the New York Post. However, it isn't just the DNA. It's DNA tied to a murder weapon, allegedly. Allegedly, yes, please, the trial expert added. Rollins does, however, believe there are too many things that tie Kohberger. This is what I don't like about media. There's too many things that tie Kohberger to the quadruple killing, which includes having a white Hyundai matching the vehicle seen near the crime scene. No. Just before the murder. No, false. Because this started off saying it was 2013, then they changed it to 2015 once they thought, once they saw Bryan's car. The suspect also had his cell phone off, false. We don't know if his phone was off or not. His phone could have been at home, he could have been run out of batteries, it could have been all sorts of things, not just switched off, which could make it hard to pinpoint the exact location. So that's another false narrative that his phone was off. We don't know if his phone was off. It could have been off, yes, but we don't actually know if it was off. So what he's basically saying is that DNA on its own would be near impossible. High Go Street to convict. And it should be believed. Should be able to convict on that. Right, so next I've got a video for us, right? I know I'm rushing through this, but it's more of a, I want to keep this under 2 hours, and I might just keep it to 2 hours. This is a 35-minute video, right? They attack the DNA because if they can remove that, all the evidence can not be used. Yes, Tim, I agree. This is Law Crime Sidebar with Jesse Weber. Now, I've not watched this personally, so but I heard some people say it was quite good. So we're gonna watch it and see what it's all about. Let me share screen.
Becca Barlow has a lot of training in DNA. She does a lot of teaching on DNA as well. It's not a simple little process, and they'll describe what kinds of materials we should have in discovery.
There has been some back and forth regarding how strong the evidence is against Bryan Kohberger, the man accused of stabbing 4 University of Idaho students to death. It's time to debate it with criminal defense attorney Andrea Burkhart. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Bryan Kohberger, Washington State University grad student accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students. Is he going to be found guilty?
And also another reason I want to watch this because Andrea Burkhart, I think, is very, very good. And I think she's actually quite, gives a fair balance into things, I think.
It's an interesting question. Now, if we go back on November 13th, 2022, Ethan Chapin, Zana Kernodle, Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, they were all found stabbed to death inside of a large off-campus rental house at the University of Idaho. There was a massive police investigation as basically the entire Moscow Police Department started looking for who did this. And after about 6 weeks after the murders, police arrested 28-year-old Washington State University doctoral student Bryan Kohberger at his parents' home in Pennsylvania, where he was spending Christmas break. They extradited him back to Idaho, charged him with 4 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of burglary. Grand jury indicted him. They looked through all the evidence, and the state announced that it will seek the death penalty against Kohberger. And while the trial date hasn't been set, we are moving towards an actual trial, closer to it now than we were. In fact, we did learn that the judge overseeing this case has now ordered that court proceedings will be live streamed on the court's YouTube channel. So while the media won't be operating the camera or taking photographs, we, the public, will still see this trial and have access to the proceedings. It's just under the control of the court. So with all of that, and we will presumably see all the witnesses and exhibits and so forth, how strong is the evidence against Bryan Kohberger? Well, I will tell you, in my opinion, I think this is a great case for prosecutors. I've thought that for a while. My next guest, though, maybe disagrees with me. And she has been kind enough to challenge me on some of this evidence. And I am joined right now by criminal defense attorney Andrea Burkhart. You can check out her YouTube page at Burkhart Law. That's at A Burkhart Law. Her Twitter handle or X handle is the same thing. And she joins us now. Andrea, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I think the first thing that we can all agree on, whether or not there are those who believe there's enough evidence to convict Bryan Kohberger or not, it is great that this is going to be televised in some form. It may not be great for the media, but it is great for the public in general that we are going to have some transparency and see these proceedings, right?
100%. Transparency in the court process is so essential, not just for folks to understand what is happening and why, but to be able to evaluate whether it's working correctly. It's an important feature of our democratic government that the public be informed. So the fact that the judge recognizes the need for the public to see this trial for themselves is very heartening to me.
I was nervous that we were going to have a Lori Vallow Daybell situation where, in that case, in Idaho, it was just audio only. I felt we lost something. You can't see the witnesses. You can't see the reaction. But listen, we got something, and something is better than nothing. But yes, as of right now, hopefully the court has a good courtroom operator and we can get all the different views. Hey there, everybody. So I want to talk to you about something that I am so excited about, and that is that Jet Match is now sponsoring Sidebar. The link in the description. All right, let's go through the evidence. Now, I want to start with what I think is arguably the strongest piece of evidence, the DNA. And there has been some discussion recently if the DNA evidence alone would be enough to convict Bryan Kohberger. I am of the opinion that it could certainly be enough. Now, I want to give a little background about it. So we know that authorities were able to make a familial match from the DNA on a knife sheath found at the crime scene to Kohberger's father. And they did this by collecting trash from outside the Kohberger home in Pennsylvania. And then after Kohberger was arrested, authorities took a cheek swab from him, and court documents reveal that the DNA recovered from the sheath is an almost identical match to Kohberger. What do you think, Andrea?
Yeah, so the DNA evidence, you've described it as strong. I would describe it as really the linchpin of the state's case, because if this DNA evidence does not stand, in my opinion, the case does not stand. So it's really the only hope that they have to get a conviction here. So you've described it as strong evidence. What we know about the DNA is that it appears to be what we call trace evidence, meaning this doesn't come directly from a body fluid like a blood or something like that can help explain how that DNA got onto that knife sheath. Instead, it is simply a small amount of what is likely DNA associated with skin cells, or sometimes there's not even any cellular material at all. It's simply free-floating DNA. And so what we know now is that this type of DNA is very easily transferred, not just from person to object, but from person to person, person to person to object, person to person to person. So there have been numerous instances of cases where false convictions have occurred due to reliance on this type of evidence. The most prominent one is a gentleman named Lucas Anderson, who, as it turned out, his DNA was found underneath the fingernails of a murder victim, and the defense was subsequently later able to tie that to his having been treated by paramedics, first responders, shortly before they then responded to the crime scene and handled this body. So
okay, I'm glad you mentioned that. That I could understand how it's explainable. Out of all places for the DNA to be, and I hear what you're saying about the difference between skin cells and blood. Out of all places, it's not found on a doorknob. It's not found on the carpet. It is found on a knife sheath, the very item that was housing the potential murder weapon. How on earth would that be there first?
Well, as I've indicated, there are multiple ways that it can end there. It could be direct touch, but it's not required to be direct touch. It could be somebody shook Bryan Kohberger's hand the night before and then touched this knife blade. That type of thing has been established to lead to the transfer of a trace DNA like this. It can simply be talking, having a conversation in a room, not touching anything at all. Your DNA can end up in measurable amounts on items like this. And part of that is because the technology itself is so sensitive now that we can pick up minute traces of DNA beyond the amounts that you would expect to have from, again, something like blood or a direct deposit like that.
But that would mean he would have to have had some sort of connection to the victims, to someone in that house, someone who have touched that knife sheath. That knife sheath, by all accounts, wasn't there before those kids went to bed that night. It was placed there. Where else would it have come from? Someone would have had to touch it. So, in other words, if
it's a tiny, like a pinpoint, like a pin, like the prick of a pin, that small. It's even maybe less than that of a speck.
If it wasn't Bryan Kohberger, then it was the real killer who had touched Bryan Kohberger, or it might have been one of the victims who had shook Bryan Kohberger's hand and then touched that knife sheath. It seems to me that's where it's the location of where the DNA is. And by the way, just to be clear, the court has indicated, the court filing, when they were matched the cheek swab to that DNA, that it is at least 5.37 octillion times more likely that Bryan Kohberger is the source rather than some random person.
Right, this is what, right? I'll just say this now because this is my opinion, right? He's saying it's 5.3 gazillion, whatever it is, right? Great. I am not even disputing that it's his DNA on it. I'm not disputing that. He keeps going back to it. No dispute. It's Bryan's DNA. No problem. It's all good. If it is the case of that, there's no problems. It's not about his DNA. How the fuck did it get on there? That's the question. It's not whether it is or not. I think they've proven now it probably is his DNA. But the fact is, he can get there multiple ways. And I think that's what annoys me listening to people like this guy. I'm not going to prove that it's not him. It's how did he get there? Was he there? Is he the murderer? Is there evidence that places him there to make him the murderer? Instead of, do you know what I mean? Could it be, like Nunia said, sneeze? Could it be, do you know what I mean? So many other things. That's what we need to concentrate on, not if it's his DNA. Hey, Idris, he could have left his DNA on the store. Yes, exactly. Yes. Language, Dylan. Sorry, Nunia. Apologies. But that's annoying me. Just like, let's move on from, is it him? Great, it's him. No problems. How did it get on there?
Well, so the degree of the connection is something that the defense has also challenged in their filings. We know that that's coming because of the way that these statistics are performed. They are calculated in a manner that is not consistent with the reality of the population at large, and it allows the creation of these overinflated numbers that make this sound like a more precise match than in fact it is. But having said that, were this an impeccable crime scene, I think your argument would be a lot stronger. But the problem is that there were hours in which various people had access to this scene. We had numerous first responders and investigators and so forth in and out through this scene. So any one of those people is a potential source of transfer DNA. Any one of those people could have potentially been the reason why Bryan Kohberger's DNA ended up on this knife sheath and nowhere else in the residence.
Here's the thing. If they had Bryan Kohberger in custody and they were interrogating him and they had police had some sort of connection to him and then go to the crime scene, I could say to you, Andrew, you're making a good point. He was a complete stranger. There's no evidence that I have seen so far. Maybe something will come out that he had partied at that house before, that he had been at that house, that he had some kind of contact with any of these people, didn't have contact with law enforcement. His DNA came out of nowhere. And that's the part that I just can't get past. And I'll leave it back to you on that, because I would agree with you if he had some sort of connection to either people who were processing the crime scene, if his DNA was in the or his materials, genetic material was somehow in the possession of law enforcement beforehand, or if he had some connection with the victims or the people in that house, I'd agree. But it seems too limited there.
Well, I think some of that does cut both ways. As you pointed out, the defense has indicated in their court filings there is no evidence of any connection between Bryan Kohberger and these victims, which is a circumstance you would expect from a killing like this if it's a targeted type of killing. But that aside, we do know that Bryan Kohberger had at least some nominal contacts with law enforcement, because we know that he had applied for an internship with the Washington State University Police. We don't know if that internship was ever granted or not, but also he is a criminology student. He is working in this area. So there are potential nexuses there between Bryan Kohberger and potentially the investigators who ended up at the scene. But again, because this evidence can be so easily transferred, it doesn't require that Bryan Kohberger directly contacted any one of the victims for his DNA to end up at the scene. He could have simply been out at a bar the night before on a Saturday night in a college town where some of the other college students would have been present. That is enough and has been demonstrated to be enough for this type of thing to take place. So I think what you're going to see in this case is that certainly the DNA evidence is a strong piece of evidence for the state, and it's what they're going to rely on. But they're going to have to show how the absence of other circumstances that we would expect to be present if Bryan Kohberger were the killer, how that can be reconciled with their theory of how this killing transpired. The complete absence of victim DNA from his car, from his home.
As of right now, we don't know. We don't know yet. We don't know what else they might have.
That has been represented in court filings by the defense that is the state of the evidence. If that is the case,
not from the prosecution.
That is going to be a massive hole that the prosecution has to fill.
Look, they have searched his properties, and there are things that we just do not know about. You know, there's idea that there were blood stains on different pieces of property, of different like mattresses and different articles that he had in his apartment. There was a potential animal hair that was found, and we're not sure if that matches the animal hair that belonged to the dog of one of the victims. I imagine prosecutors are going to have more than they've shared at this point. And if that's the case, then I believe their case is going to get much stronger. But just to go back to the DNA for a second, I said, I think the DNA alone could be enough. Why do I say that? Covered a case here, the Jerry Burns case, cold case out of Iowa, convicted of murdering Michelle Martinko back in the 1970s, cold case for decades. No eyewitnesses, no surveillance, no text messages, no GPS data. They took crime scene DNA. They took blood. So yeah, I agree with you. This was blood. But they took blood from the crime scene and they compared it to data in genetic genealogy databases. They get a pool of people. It includes Jerry Burns. They collect a straw he discarded at a restaurant, and the DNA on the straw was consistent with the blood found on Martinko's dress. They were able to match the DNA.
It's different DNA, you dick. No worries, I'll be offline by then. But I'll see you Monday, all right? This guy, I know.
He is convicted. It was the strongest piece of evidence in the case. Golden State Killer, DNA, pled guilty. I see these kinds of cases where juries are seizing upon DNA. I understand that he has some connections to law enforcement and he lived nearby the house. But other than that, it doesn't seem to me a jury is going to accept that there's some other alternative explanation. As of right now, if you can provide some alternative explanation for why his DNA would be not only in the house, but on the knife sheath, that feels like a smoking gun, a slam dunk in this case. You can disagree with me.
I do disagree. And the main reason why is because of that very critical detail in the previous case that you mentioned, which is the presence of blood. The problem with DNA evidence isn't so much the fact that it exists, it's explaining how it got there. And with something like blood in a murder setting, there's a pretty strong inference that you have to draw that means the person was present and bled on the item from which the blood was recovered. With trace DNA, that argument simply doesn't follow. There are too many ways for that potential evidence to end up on a sheath like that knife. There is a massive amount of forensic science that has been done on this topic. The defense is going to have experts who can come in and explain how all of this works to the jury. You can be sure that the jury is going to hear about this Lucas Anderson case that I mentioned previously. This is simply not the weight of evidence that something like a blood sample is going to give the state. And so because of that, it's all the more important that the surrounding circumstances strongly corroborate the state's theory of how these killings occurred. And that is where, in my opinion, the evidence that we have so far is nowhere near at the level that it would need to be to establish Bryan Kohberger's guilt beyond reasonable doubt.
Let's keep going forward with this. So, and obviously, the defense is trying to also understand how law enforcement used, it's called IGG, investigative genetic genealogy, to actually find this tree and how, it was actually able to narrow down to Kohberger. But I do want to move down to the other evidence, cell phone evidence. So, again, I also think a huge piece of evidence. So on the night of the murders at 2:42 a.m., Bryan Kohberger's phone is connecting to a tower that covers his apartment in the Pullman, Washington area. 5 minutes later, the data shows that that phone leaves the residence, travels south through Pullman, Washington, and that is consistent, which we'll talk about next, the movement of the white Hyundai Elantra that's caught on surveillance footage. Then the phone stops responding to the network. Prosecutors say he shut off the phone purposely to avoid detection. And out of all the times to come back on, it comes back on at 4:48 a.m., 2 hours later, after when prosecutors say the killings happened, and it hits the towers covering the area to the highway south of Moscow, Idaho. Okay, so now it looks like the phone was traveling towards the King Road residence and now leaving King Road residence. Then, between 4:50 a.m. and 5:25 a.m. on the day of the murders, the phone hits a tower showing the phone is traveling towards Uniontown, Idaho, back to Pullman, Washington. 5:30 a.m., it hits the area providing coverage for his residence. It's consistent with the phone is back home, at his home at his apartment. And also, the probable cause affidavit revealed that Kohberger's phone GPS pinged at or near that house on King Road residence at least 12 times before the day of the murders. Now, either late at night or early in the morning. And as I said, that cell phone data is consistent with the movement of the Hyundai Elantra. I find that to be so strong and really pinpoints him, because who else would have had his phone? You tell me, is it not as strong as I'm saying?
Again, I don't particularly think this evidence is as strong as you're saying. And part of that is because I have the advantage of living in this area of the country. This is a rural area. I'm quite familiar with it. And so cell tower density is not there like it is in, a city like Philadelphia or Washington, D.C. or something like that. Those types of dense cell phone configurations allow fairly precise tracking of cell phones because the location of the cell phone can be triangulated from the pings off of multiple towers. In an area like Moscow, Idaho, this is an area where you might only have a single cell tower that covers a range of 100 square miles or so. So the precision that you get from a single cell phone connection to a single cell tower does not tell you much at all. One of the things that we know from the probable cause affidavit as well is that police obtained a cell tower dump from that tower that was near the King Road residence. So the defense is also going to be able to point out, here's the other hundreds, potentially thousands of people who were also pinging off of this phone, off of this tower within that time frame. So it doesn't particularly give you a precise view of where Bryan Kohberger's location was at any given point in time.
So I've heard that argument in countless trials before, that the cell phone tower pinging is not as precise. Okay, even assuming if it can't pinpoint within a mile, 2 miles, feet, whatever. The idea here is that the phone is connecting to certain towers at the precise times when, before the murder happened, after the murder happened, shuts off at that key 2-hour period. That seems awfully suspicious, because the phone could have very well been in his apartment the entire time. If it was at the if it was at the apartment, it would have been pinging. So we have to accept, okay, he had his phone and he was driving around seemingly in the direction and away from the direction, generally speaking, of where the murders happened. And then it shuts off at that key point. It feels, even if we can't pinpoint exactly where he is, where it's connecting, when it's shutting off, generally, that is awfully circumstantial and suspicious.
Well, certainly the state is going to argue that. And Bryan Kohberger has acknowledged in his kind of alibi, not alibi, if you will, that he was in fact out driving around that night. This is a Saturday night. These are college towns. That's not unusual behavior for a person to be engaged in. And again, the police have theorized that a possible explanation for this is that Mr. Kohberger turned off his cell phone during the time frame that the murders were committed. Suggesting he's a sophisticated type of perpetrator, he would know how to hide his tracks. Well, one has to wonder why a sophisticated perpetrator like this would bring his cell phone at all, let alone drive to the scene in his own vehicle, which could then be identified. So this explanation of Mr. Kohberger as kind of both the most organized and disorganized killer at the same time doesn't really line up with a coherent theory of this case. But again, part of the issue with the cell tower density here is that it is not difficult to get out of cell phone range in this area. And that is another perfectly viable explanation for why Mr. Kohberger's cell phone was no longer connecting to these particular towers. If Mr. Kohberger is driving out in the area of, say, Moscow Mountain, it would absolutely be expected that his cell phone was going to lose connectivity with the towers in that area. It's starting to become mountainous, and again, the density is very low. So this is a common occurrence in this type of area that I think folks in the community of Moscow are going to understand and relate to, because they have lost their cell signal driving on these roads before. Whereas folks from more denser urban communities may not be able to necessarily relate to that.
I have a theory, and I don't know if it could be good, but here's the theory: that he didn't plan to kill them when he left that night. That maybe he brought his phone, he was driving out, then saw that they were all home, decided, or he decided at some point when he was in the car that he was going to do this, and or he made a mistake and brought the phone with him. I mean, one of the big questions we have is, if you committed the murders, why would you leave the knife sheath? Well, maybe you panicked. So I agree, there could be an aspect of it where he's trying to be a sophisticated killer, but he also realizes, oops, I made a mistake, or oops, I'm going to decide to do this now, and ultimately turn my phone off. So it becomes a question, when did he actually plan it or not? I think there's other explanations to go through there, but I know my time is limited with you, Andrea, so I want to go with you to the Hyundai Elantra. I mentioned how the cell phone pinging is consistent with the white Hyundai Elantra. So the car was spotted on several cameras passing the King Road home 4 times between 3:29 a.m. and 4:04 a.m. on the night of the killing.
I agree, Tim.
And then it speeds away 16 minutes later. Then the car they have on tape leaving the Washington State University campus at 2:44 a.m. They capture it headed towards Moscow. 5:25 a.m., the camera shows it returning back to Washington State University. And by the way, later on in the afternoon of the day of the murders, they track the phone to an Albertsons grocery store, and they see Kohberger on tape exit that white Hyundai Elantra. Not only that, after the killings, a Washington State University officer spotted a white Hyundai Elantra in the parking lot of an apartment complex. It comes back registered to Kohberger. We've seen him driving that car before on body cam footage. So now you have the cell phone data matching up to the white Hyundai Elantra that is not seen by necessarily eyewitnesses. It's captured on surveillance tape. That, again, is another critical piece in my mind.
Now, this Elantra, there are tens of thousands of white Hyundai Elantras in this area. There are many, many vehicles that could have potentially been the suspect vehicle. We have not seen these surveillance videos and so forth that the FBI has relied on to make these claims of being able to track it and so forth. We don't know what their methodology is. We don't know how strong it is. We do know that the FBI initially misidentified the Hyundai Elantra. If it was in fact Bryan Kohberger's car, the police initially identified what they saw on camera as the wrong model year vehicle. So at some point,
but how central is that? How central is that if they got the year wrong, but it's still the same type of car?
Because if these are the types of details between the model years that are allowing them to make that type of specific identification, then there was a reason why they initially thought it was this one vehicle, and perhaps some detail led them to change their mind.
But out of all the white Hyundai Elantras, out of all the white Hyundai Elantras, the fact that it's on tape at these key locations and it's matching up to the cell phone footage, the two things can't be separated.
Well, again, they can, because the cell phone footage is not particularly
cell phone
precise.
data. Sorry. That's a court. But okay. But even if you're saying that, of all the phones, this phone that they have registered to Bryan Kohberger, this car they have registered to Bryan Kohberger, it's doing the same kind of thing, and so it's going to be very hard to separate that he is not the holder of that phone, that he is not the driver of that car going in these specific locations. The surveillance footage makes up where the cell phone data can't. So if you say you can't accurately pinpoint him, the surveillance footage of the car can.
Surveillance footage of the car approximately 50 miles south in Clarkston, Washington, in an Albertsons parking lot can certainly corroborate his location there at that particular point in time. But that car is not traced on video in an uninterrupted fashion back to the King Road killings. And this just comes back to the fact that we don't know what the FBI relied on, what their methodology was to be able to make these claims that it's looking at the same vehicle, that the vehicle is moving in a certain way. The defense also has identified in some of their briefing in the court filings that at least some of the information that the FBI relied on to make this identification showed this vehicle going in the wrong way on one of the primary roads out there. So
okay, but the idea of the car, Andrea, the idea of the car on 4 times going past that house at 3:29 a.m.
How rude is he? She's speaking and he just talking all.
4:04 a.m. and then speeding away 16 minutes later. Is that we're just not going to believe what the footage shows?
What the footage shows is potentially something associated with the murder, potentially not. The footage does not show Bryan Kohberger. And as far as we can tell, the footage doesn't give us a clear enough identification of that vehicle for us to be able to say definitively, yes, that is Bryan Kohberger's car. There are other Hyundai Elantras that are within this model year that exist in that neighborhood, let alone other white sedans that are driven by other people in that neighborhood. So again, to be able to pin this on Bryan Kohberger is that's definitively his car. The state's certainly going to try to do that. But whether that's going to be enough to be able to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that because of some grainy surveillance footage, that therefore this is Bryan Kohberger's vehicle, that's going to be a bit of a more difficult sell.
Now, I could talk about this evidence forever. I do want to get to one last big piece, the potential eyewitness identification. I will tell you right now, I don't think that this is the strongest piece of evidence. Having said that, I think this is the cherry on top. So we know that in that house, there were 2 surviving roommates. One of them was Dylan Mortensen. She told police before Bryan Kohberger's name ever came up, before anybody knew what Bryan Kohberger looked like, she spoke to law enforcement and said that on the night of the killing, she was home. She heard, she believed Kaylee say, there's someone here. She heard crying. She heard a male voice saying, it's okay, I'm going to help you. She opens the door and she sees this person wearing all black clothing with a mask.
Hi, Carleen. Welcome to the channel, Carleen. Nice to see you.
That covers their mouth and nose, walking towards her. She said she didn't recognize him, but thought he was 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, at least athletically built, and he has bushy eyebrows. That description matches up to Bryan Kohberger before anybody knew about Bryan Kohberger. And again, you could say maybe it's not the strongest piece of evidence. I think you add that to everything we talked about, it's important, and it could be really bad for Bryan Kohberger.
It's certainly going to be a part of the state's case. There's no question about that. The difficulty with this description that Dylan gave is that it is very vague. There are probably going to be, again, thousands of people, young men who are 5'10" or older, taller, who could potentially meet this description. Again, this was known as a party house from what we know about how things were done there. It seems like it was pretty common for people to be coming and going at really all hours of the night. So yes, certainly this is something that the state is going to rely on as part of their evidence. But I tend to agree with you as to how strong it is. It would be much stronger if Dylan Mortensen at some later point has been, for example, shown a photo lineup of people, including Bryan Kohberger, and has identified him as the man she saw in the house. That
couldn't she do that at trial? Couldn't she do that at trial?
There.
Couldn't they say?
I'm sorry?
Couldn't they say that at trial? Miss Mortensen, is Bryan Kohberger the man that you saw that night? Couldn't they ask her that?
Oh, they can certainly ask that at trial, and the defense is going to point out she knows exactly who she's supposed to identify in this courtroom. That's why you do a photo lineup series where it is blindly administered. and there is no suggestion to the witness as to who is the right person to identify. It makes it a much cleaner identification that isn't tainted by these potential opportunities for bias to enter into that.
I guess I would just say, out of all of the descriptions she could give of somebody, it matches up more or less to Kohberger. And at that time, what she hears, it's not like she just saw him. She's hearing the crying. She's hearing the words. She sees this person walk right past her at that specific point in the night. And I think that's where we have to remember the significance of it.
Well, there's something that is missing from the probable cause affidavit that jumped out at me immediately, and that is the medical examiner's opinion as to the time of death. The reason why this is important is because the time frame in which these murders occurred, that has been largely reverse engineered by the state from everything that we've seen in the probable cause affidavit. They have simply looked at the correspondence between when were the last time that people were seen, when were they communicating on their cell phones. There was a DoorDash delivery of food at some point in this time frame. There's a lot of pieces that have come together that have led the state, along with the video surveillance of this white vehicle, to take the position that the crime happened at this very specific time frame between about 4:05 and 4:20 in the morning. I would like to know, does that correspond with the medical examiner's estimate of the time of death? That's something that we would have known before the probable cause affidavit was written. I would expect that information to be included in the probable cause affidavit if it confirmed the state's theories of how these murders occurred. So there is going to be a burden on the state to establish the time frame as well, because all of these pieces have to fall into place for Mr. Kohberger to be the suspect that they've identified. And if any one of those pieces falls apart and it turns out maybe there are reasons to think the murder took place an hour earlier, an hour later, then this whole theory of Mr. Kohberger being the perpetrator falls apart because of the timing of that white car.
I will tell you,
example of how all of the circumstances really have to come in alignment in the state's favor for there to be enough for a jury to convict beyond a reasonable doubt.
But so many cases we cover, we see a successful prosecution, we see a conviction without them establishing the specific exact time that the killings took place. They can't sometimes tell you this happened at 4:53 in the evening, in the afternoon. They can't do it sometimes, and yet they're able to convict nonetheless. Listen, Andrea Burkhart, I could talk about this all with you. I really enjoyed going back and forth with you about this. Hopefully I can get you back on.
Yeah, hopefully you get back on, Andrea. And hopefully he's not so bloody rude next time. Jesus. That annoyed me. Andrea's fantastic, though. I think we'd all admit to that. Also, how composed was she? I don't think I could be that composed. Him interrupting all the time. The investigation doesn't end until the commission. Well, look at Murdoch's trial, yeah? They couldn't get data for the car. They said, they won't give us data. Next day, bam, data. So, yeah. You enjoyed steamrolling her. I did enjoy steamrolling. I think she's lovely. I like her, Andrea. So, anyway, I know that was a little bit more than touch DNA right at the end there, but the main thing I'm trying to hopefully people get out of this is just remember what touch DNA is. It's not as reliable as what you might think it is. It has its place. It definitely has its place, but on its own, it's not reliable, in my opinion, anyway. Yeah, I couldn't understand what you were saying there, Sonia. Yeah. I'm going to do more Bryan Kohberger content. I just wanted to start off with, my fault, I did put a picture of Bryan at the front. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. But I wanted to put some cases. I'm glad she mentioned the Anderson case there just now, the Lucas Anderson one, because that was one of my cases that I presented to you. So it's scary, is what I'm saying. It's scary. It could be you next, and that's how scary it is. So just remember that it could be any of us that get convicted for murder based on touch DNA. So that's why I take it a bit more serious. And that's why I still don't think that you should ever convict anybody based on touch DNA. Now, separate to touch DNA, the other evidence, that's different. Do you know what I mean? That's for another day. We can discuss all that. But I wanted to keep this just about touch DNA because I see more and more people saying he's guilty because of touch DNA. And I don't believe anybody could or should be guilty based on just touch DNA. And even with Bryan having DNA on the button sheath, I still think there is. Are you running a specific schedule? Just no. So I do normally. I'll ask this, Tim. I do normally do a specific schedule, but I don't know what trials are happening on Monday. So I'll be live at around 9, 10 o'clock Eastern on Monday to see if there's a trial on, and if not, then I can give a basic schedule. So normally I do have a schedule of trials that we do, but because I don't know what's coming up on Monday, I don't know what I'm doing next week yet. But I stream every day. Stream. If I don't do a trial, I normally stream twice a day with different videos. But normally I'm on. Today I wasn't going to do, but people wanted a quick video, so I did this one today. But on Monday I'll be live at about 9 or 10 o'clock Eastern, depending if there's a trial. I'll be live anyway, no matter what. We'll discuss what we do for the rest of the week then on Monday. So that's where we are with that, Tim. So put 2 notifications on, and then I stream 6 days a week. Every Saturday, not tomorrow, but every Saturday I do the Matt Moore trial with Matt himself. So yeah, if you haven't seen that, go and watch the Matt Moore stuff, because that's unique to have the actual defendant on stream with us every week, give us an insight of what he felt like during the trial. But yeah, so that's enough about that one. I will be back to make more content on that. I've also got Karen Reid stuff to go through in a later date, and then that's about it, really, I think. Let's stretch a little bit. No Matt tomorrow, no. No Matt tomorrow. It's because it's a holidays, you see, Josie, and I want to make sure like that he had whatever space he needed for this holiday. Holidays normally for families, and obviously I was I was thinking about him because you normally spend your family holidays with your family, and I just wanted him to have space for himself if needed. So he was happy to have a day off as well. So Judge Boyd, yes, we'll have something on, guys. We'll have something on. Thank you, Tim. Yeah, come back Monday. Come back 9 o'clock Eastern Monday, something like that. Between 9 and 10 Eastern, we'll be on. So, guys, with that, enjoy the rest of your holidays. I'll be watching the Jets and Dolphins tonight, and the NFL, and some of the games tomorrow, college games. So, we are, yeah, no, I know, but it's more, it's that awkwardness of, his wife, his kids, everything going. I wasn't sure what the right thing to do was, but he wanted the day off, so I just left it at that. I was like, cool. I left it to him. So, always welcome, yes. Everyone's always welcome. Thank you guys for being here. Nice to see so many old faces, Melissa. So thank you for popping in. And with that, guys, love you all. And this is a reminder to you all, free Zachary Anderson. And go to freezachariahanderson.org if you haven't done so to see that case. Thanks all. Thanks, Tim. As Joe said, hit that like button and see you later.